This video segment describes the materials and flow of activities for your JA More Than Money JA in a Day. As class begins, greet the students and share your name, your job, and why you decided to volunteer for JA. Explain that today they'll be learning about how to start a business and making smart money decisions. During the first session, the Money Garden, you'll help students become familiar with the differences between earning, saving, and spending. Present the vocabulary listed in the volunteer guide, either digitally or using the flashcards in your kit. Then show side 1 of the Earn, Save, and Spend poster. Distribute the Session 1 flyers, and be aware that students' reading abilities will vary if you ask anyone to help read the Money Garden comic aloud. Next, pass out the sticky notes and explain what to write on each color. As students are writing, display side 2 of the poster and describe how money goes back and forth among people, businesses, and financial institutions. And point out the money diagram in their flyers. Explain the importance of tracking money that is earned, saved, and spent, and show the How to Fill in Your Money Tracker video, or fill in the spaces on the My Money Tracker poster using a marker. Now you're ready to play a game, so distribute the Earn, Save, and Spend bingo cards and bookmarks. This game is like traditional bingo. The first player to mark the spaces on the card, either vertically, horizontally, or diagonally, wins the round. Students should mark their cards and also make an entry on their My Money Trackers. Walk around the room to monitor students' progress and allow a few minutes for gameplay until someone calls money or bingo. In the next topic, called Create a Business, students will identify businesses they would like to start that align with their personal interests and skills. They'll gain an understanding of the role entrepreneurs play in affecting their community and the world. If technology is available, show the entrepreneur video before you lead a discussion about business and present the vocabulary. Use the talking points in your volunteer guide to help students recognize that entrepreneurs often create businesses based on their abilities and interests. Distribute the My Interest sheets and explain that this is a list of interests that many people share. Read the instructions aloud and then give students 2 or 3 minutes to mark their top 3 or 4 interests on the sheet. Share the examples listed in your volunteer guide or some of your own as you define the word skills. Then direct students' attention back to their My Interest sheets. Ask them to think of a small business they might like to create based on their abilities and interests, and invite them to write it in the space provided. Next, to play the board game, ask the teacher to help you separate students into groups of 3 or 4. Before you distribute the game package you prepared, tell students that the goal of the game is to earn the most money for their business and to collect important business skills. Be sure to clarify how to win. They will track their money using the My Money Tracker in their flyers. Distribute the business game boards and bags of game pieces to each group. As students play, walk around and monitor their progress. Allow no more than 15 minutes to play the game, and when time is up, congratulate the winners and gather the game boards and pieces for use again later in the day. At this point, you'll have been teaching for about an hour, so it may be a good time for a stretch break. Ask students or the teacher if a short 5-minute break would be helpful, and allow students to stand beside their desks to shake out and stretch. When everyone is back and settled, move on to the third session, Build a Business, where students will identify the basic steps for building a small business and develop a basic business plan. Present the vocabulary flashcards and introduce the idea of planning to students. Then transition to the concept of a business plan. Show the 5 W's business plan poster and explain that all businesses need to consider these questions in order to get started. Ask students to read aloud the 5 questions: what, who, when, where, and why on the poster. Ask them to think about these questions as you read aloud the comic strip in the flyer. As you review each question, ask them how Ida answered the 5 W's for her business. You may need to allow a few moments for students to volunteer an answer. It's okay to have silence in the class while students consider. Don't provide the answer too quickly. Then tell students they should answer these same questions about their own business ideas. Give them a couple of minutes to write down their responses in their flyers. After they've compared the 5 W's of basic business planning, tell the students that they'll need to think more about how to get their business started. Relate back to Ida from the comic strip. Display the business plan poster and point out Ida's business plan, explaining there are 2 parts: startup costs and business information. Note that side 2 of this poster is not available as a digital asset because you'll be writing on it. Walk the students through Ida's startup costs, having them brainstorm together as a class and write their responses on the poster. Then guide the students' discussion so that the suggested numbers make sense. After completing the business plan, each student should create a business plan based on the small business they want to create. Give them 5 to 10 minutes to work. If necessary, due to time or student maturity level, you may decide instead to work on a single business plan as a class or have students work in pairs. The next topic, Run a Business, helps students learn the reasons why financial institutions lend money and why people borrow money for their businesses. Have students follow along in the vocabulary section of their student flyer, underlining the words as they're discussed. Point out the money diagram as you review how money travels back and forth among people, businesses, and financial institutions. Then read the comic strips to the students. Introduce the decision-making process and let students know you'll read aloud 2 loan scenarios, and they get to decide whether or not to lend money to a business owner. If they think it's a good idea to lend the money, they should raise their hands for. If they don't think it's a good idea to loan the money, they should raise their hands against. Read the first scenario aloud and have students vote, then ask 1 or 2 students to explain the reason for their decision, and do the second for the same scenario. Conclude the activity by asking students to consider the qualities of a trustworthy borrower. Next, you'll transition to the topic of paying back a loan and introduce a new board game. Students will play in groups of 4 and roll a die to move around the board. You collect $50 each time you pass start, and pick a card when you land on a space with a picture of a business. Other spaces cause you to earn or to lose money or to make a loan payment. Everyone starts with a $500 loan that must be paid back with 10% interest, and the first player to pay back his or her loan and have the most money wins the round. Discuss the goal of the game and review the instructions. Then distribute the game boards and bags of game pieces. And be sure to tell students that they're playing the game on side 2 of the board. Allow about 10 or 15 minutes for gameplay. Let students know that the last topic for the day is global success, and they'll explore reasons why businesses import and export goods and the considerations related to selling in a global market. After distributing the student flyers and introducing new vocabulary, ask the students if they've ever traded one thing for another with a friend or anyone else. Define the word trade and share an example using one from the volunteer guide or your own. Tell students that countries often trade their extras for what they don't have enough of. Follow the talking points in your guide to lead a discussion and define imports and exports. Next, tell students that together they'll complete an activity to see how countries connect through trade. Hand each student 1 export and 1 import card and have them find the country listed on their copy of the world map. Remind them that the yellow card shows what they need to import and the blue card shows what they have to export. Give the students a few minutes to circle the country or countries in their flyers that matches their cards. Now ask them to stand with their import and export cards in hand and have them form a circle in the classroom. Before starting the activity, you might have a student demonstrate the trading process. Have your volunteer tell the class his or her country's need found on the yellow card. Ask the volunteer to say, "My country needs to import fruit juice. Who has fruit juice to export? Have students check their blue cards to see if they have export fruit juice. When the match is made, have the students trade cards. Explain that when you give the signal, students will mix with their classmates to collect the import card they need and give away their export card. On both cards, the needed resource is highlighted in bold. Tell students that once they have traded the cards, they should return to their seats. Give the signal and allow students to find their matches. At the end of training, they should have collected new cards and given away their original ones. Congratulate the students for their good work. In the last 5 minutes of the day, remove some of the topics completed during your sessions and ask students what they learned and enjoyed the most. Tell students now they're ready to graduate. Call them up one at a time to receive their certificate and carabiner ring and have other students applaud. Teach them to shake your hand with their right hand and accept the certificate with their left. This concludes the JA More Than Money JA in a Day volunteer resource video. Thank you for being a Junior Achievement volunteer.